Good morning and welcome to today's public hearing. My name is Pete South and I am the Associate Director of the Sector Policies and Programs Division at EPA's Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, the division responsible for this public hearing and rulemaking. And thanks for all of you for attending today and sharing your comments on the EPA's proposed amendments to the 2020 National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, NESHAP, for plywood and composite wood products, or PCWP. The PCWP source category includes 223 facilities, 99 PCWP facilities, and 124 lumber mills. This proposal responds to a 2007 partial remand and vacatur of portions of the 2004 PCWP NESHAP and addresses issues raised in a petition for reconsideration. The proposed amendments would protect air quality and public health by reducing emissions of hazardous air pollutants, or HAP. The proposed amendments are estimated to reduce HAP and volatile organic compounds from the PCWP source category by approximately 590 and 8,100 tons per year, respectively. Now I'd like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. On the panel are
Good morning. My name is Katie Hanks. I'm an engineer with EPA's Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. I'm the project manager for the proposed PCWP NESHAP.
Good morning. I'm Bill Schrock. I provided support for the PCWP rulemaking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Bill. We're also joined today by a court reporter who will produce a written transcript of today's hearing. We will add the transcript to the public docket for this rulemaking and will carefully consider your comments as we develop a final rule. Now I'd like to go through some ground rules for today. Before we begin, I'd like to provide some ground rules and housekeeping. First, EPA is committed to an environment of mutual respect and safety. We want to hear your views on the proposed rule today. However, the agency will not tolerate harassment, discrimination, intimidation, inappropriate language and images, or sustained disruption of the public hearing. EPA expects everyone participating in this hearing, including registered speakers, attendees, and those of us on this panel, to conduct themselves in a respectful and civil manner. We will monitor and moderate this virtual event to ensure that the common standards of decency are upheld. Please note, by registering for this event, you are agreeing to abide by the ground rules of the virtual hearing. We ask that everyone remain muted with their cameras off until it is your turn to speak. Okay, let's move on to logistics for today's hearing. If you've joined us through Zoom, please keep the chat box open. It is at the bottom of your screen. We will put the names of the next speakers in the chat box. We may also use the chat to communicate directly with you during the hearing. I will call on each speaker when it is your turn. If you are speaking today, please rename yourself in the Zoom participant list to match your registered speaker name. This will allow our logistics staff to quickly queue up the next speakers. If you need help, please chat with the attendee support. When I call on you to speak, please unmute your line. And if you're joining us via Zoom, that button is on the lower left of your screen. If you're joining us by phone, you can mute and unmute yourself by pressing *6. Please state your first name and last name and spell it for the record. Please speak slowly so that our court reporter can capture your entire testimony. When you're providing testimony, you're welcome to activate your video camera by clicking on the Start Video icon. If you're not testifying, please keep your camera off. Each speaker will have 4 minutes to give comments. A 4-minute timer will be displayed on the screen to help you keep track of your time. The timer will start when you state your name. When your 4 minutes are up, it's time to stop. If you're testifying by phone, the timekeeper will alert you when you have 1 minute remaining. To be fair to everyone, we're going to strictly enforce the 4-minute limit. If you have additional items that you'd like to share, such as slide presentations or videos, you may submit them to the docket for the proposal through July 3rd, 2023. Instructions for submitting comments are on our website, and we encourage you to submit a written copy of the testimony you provide today. We will post reminders about how to submit written comments in the chat box throughout the hearing. We're here to listen to you today. However, panel members may ask questions to clarify your comments. When you're finished speaking, please remain on the line until I can confirm that there are no further clarifying questions from our panel. Once we're done, please remute your line and turn off your camera. I will then call on the next speaker and so on. If time allows, we may be able to add additional speakers. If you did not pre-register and are interested in speaking, please send a direct message to attendee support in the chat box. Our logistics teams will let you know if there are any time slots available and assist you with registering. For those of you watching the hearing on YouTube and would like to speak, please email our registration support team. That email address is in the public hearing box on our website. Finally, today's hearing is scheduled from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If there are no additional speakers, we may close the session 15 minutes after the last registered speaker has testified. We may also take short breaks as needed. Thank you again for taking the time today to share your comments on EPA's proposal. Let's get started. Okay. Our first two speakers will be Debbie Campbell. I'm sorry, our first three speakers will be Debbie Campbell, Clint Woods, and Sahar Osman Cipher. Again, state your first name and last name and spell it for the record. So first up, we'll start off with Debbie Campbell Clint. Welcome, Debbie.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you see me?
I can't see you, but we can hear you. It's a little dark.
I did click the stop video. The start video. That should have done that, correct?
Yes, that should have done it.
Just give me a second. I just
Sure.
would like
Just
to-
so a little help here on this. Sometimes Zoom will select an internal camera or an exterior camera if you have two cameras open. Just click on the little on the bottom left, the start video icon, and there's a little menu next to that where you can choose your camera.
Okay, start video. Choose. I see it. I think this will give me.
Yes, we can see you now.
I see smiles, so that must mean everybody can see me. I can't see myself, so I trust with the smiles, you can all see me. Good morning. My name is Debbie Campbell, Senior Manager, Product Stewardship and Compliance with Bakelite Synthetics. Debbie is D-E-B-B-I-E, Campbell, like the soup, C-A-M-P-B-E-L-L. Okay, I'll get ready to get started. Good morning. Oh, I can see myself now. Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of Bakelite Synthetics. Bakelite is a global manufacturer of wood composite resins and adhesives used in PCWP processes. Our objective today is to submit a request to extend the public comment period in order to develop and submit written comments regarding the draft proposed rule published in the Federal Register on May 18th, 2023. We formally request the current public comment period of 30 days be extended an additional 30 days. While we support the work-based standard approach for resonated material handling units as found in Section 112H of the Clean Air Act that are consistent with federal, state, and local law, the additional time will allow Bakelite to work with the proposed stakeholders, our customers, and our peers to address and align on specific matters of concern as currently written in the proposed rule. Over the next few minutes, I would like to highlight concerns that we have with the proposed rule as published in the Federal Register on May 18th. Okay, first off, the proposed rule leaves a definition of HAP versus non-HAP open to interpretation. We propose that using language similar to the language found in 40 CFR Part 63, Subpart 2292 would provide clarification. Specifically, the use of OSHA-defined carcinogen criteria as specified. I'm sorry, I lost my spot. Sorry, I'm going to start over on that. Over the next few minutes, I will highlight the concerns we have with the proposed rule as published in the Federal Register on May 18th. First, the proposed rule leaves a definition of HAP versus non-HAP open to interpretation. We propose that using the language found in 40 CFR Part 63, Subpart 2292 would provide this clarification. Specifically, the use of an ocean-defined carcinogen specified in 29 CFR 1910-1200, Appendix A, Section 1.6.4 would provide alignment consistent with other rules. Secondly, we have concerns with the lack of specificity regarding the methodology used for vapor pressure determinations will lead to different results between the resin suppliers, resulting from the potential to interpret non-HAP and total HAP differently. The third concern, HAPs under OSHA reporting thresholds would require a potential mechanism for disclosure outside of OSHA 1910-1200 requirements. And lastly, we believe that the compliance validation for the resin manufacturer must be based on a neat resin, meaning only containing the base polymer, or adhesive at standard temperatures for consistency. The standard temperature utilized by resin producers is 25 Celsius. Determination of compliance thereafter, accounting for other site-specific variables, including storage tank temperature variations, would be the responsible of the PWC facility. And second, vapor pressure thresholds based on tank size categories as outlined in 40 CFR Part 63. This completes our comments today. I appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed rule, and thank you for considering our request for a 30-day public comment period. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And do we have any questions or clarifications from the panel? Okay, no. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you again for providing testimony today.
Thank you. I appreciate your help.
Sure.
And I will go off camera now.
Great, thank you.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it. You too, take care. Okay, our second speaker for today is Mr. Clint Woods. Clint, please state your first name, last name, and spell it for us, and feel free to turn on your video and microphone.
Great. So I'm Clint Woods, CLINT-WOODS. That's coming through okay?
Yep, thanks.
Thank you very much to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for hosting this important public hearing, as well as for the work on this proposed rule. As I mentioned, my name is Clint Woods, and I serve as the Global Director of Product Stewardship and Regulatory Affairs for Hexion, Inc. Based in Columbus, Ohio, Hexion is a leading provider of thermoset resins and other performance materials to customers in the plywood and composite wood product sector. We're providing comments this morning to identify 4 issues related to EPA's May 18th proposal. First, as with the last commenter, we asked that EPA should extend the comment period by at least 15 days beyond the current July 3rd deadline in order to improve the quality of the rulemaking, as well as given the potential implications for stakeholders outside the list of effective sources. For the 2004 Plywood and Composite Wood Products Maximum Available Control Technology Standards, or PCWP MACT, EPA provided 90 days of public comment, twice the length of the current comment period, and held a public hearing 20 days after the proposal was published in the Federal Register. Second, EPA should refine its definitions related to Resonated Material Handling Unit, or RMH, work practice standards in order to provide clarity and consistency with other aspects of the PCWP MACT, avoid any unintentional market impacts or incentives for the use of resins with higher HAP content. In particular, EPA should ensure that any new thresholds and definitions for both the non-HAP resins or maximum vapor pressure work practices do not inadvertently exclude the most prevalent, reliable, and cost-effective resins for the source category, including those based on urea formaldehyde, phenol formaldehyde, and melamine urea formaldehyde chemistries. These workhorse resins have far and away the lowest hazardous air pollutant content of the commonly used resins in this sector, and are also backed by decades of evidence demonstrating their safe use, low emissions profile, and avoidance of ozone depleting substances. In addition, the availability of these resins is essential to other important societal goals like housing affordability, sustainable forestry by enabling well over 90% of a tree to be used in critical wood products, and building an efficient and electrified transportation system. Similarly, any new work practice standard should facilitate innovations in resin technology and drive additional reductions in hazardous air pollutant and other emissions. Third, in accordance with Section 112H2 of the Clean Air Act, EPA should ensure consistency between any new work practices and existing standards and accompanying compliance demonstration obligations affecting resins and wood product systems. These include those from the California Air Resources Board, as well as from US EPA under Subchapter 6 of the Toxic Substances Control Act. Finally, in EPA's analysis accompanying determinations related to costs and benefits, the significance of the rulemaking, and the applicability of the Small Business Regulatory Enforcement Flexibility Act, the agency should incorporate a fulsome consideration of paperwork and other compliance burdens that may be borne by upstream suppliers, including many small entities, in providing compliance assistance with new resonated material handling unit work practice standards. The final rule would also be significantly improved by an interagency review process consistent with Executive Order 12866, as well as PCWP rulemakings in the past. Thanks again for the opportunity to provide these comments, which Hexion and our industry partners intend to expand upon in written form. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Woods. The panel, any questions or clarifications for the speaker? Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Woods. Thanks for providing testimony today. Okay, our next speaker is Sahar Osman Seifer. Welcome.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thanks.
Great. So I'll spell my name, Sahar, S-A-H-A-R. Last name is Osman Seifer, O-S-M-A-N hyphen S-Y-P-H-E-R. And then with that, I'll start with my comments. I'm speaking on behalf of the American Chemistry Council's formaldehyde panel, and I'll be covering 4 points today. First, EPA should extend the comment period for this proposal by 30 days or more in order to ensure a reasonable opportunity to comment. This is especially important for resin producers, including small entities, which EPA has not considered affected sources, but will have first-time obligations associated with support for customers to comply with potential resin work practice standards associated with these manufacturers' products. These producers and their products have not been the focus of past EPA rules in this source category, nor agency information collection requests since 2004. Second, we agree with EPA that it is not feasible to prescribe or enforce an emission standard for control of HAPs for resonated material handling units, and therefore the agency, if obligated, should develop work practice standards under Section 112H of the Clean Air Act that are consistent with federal, state, or local laws and practicable. However, EPA must provide a reasoned explanation, notice, and a more detailed justification for its action to focus on resin work practice standards, given that this is a change in position from its prior policy. For example, in EPA's final 2020 RTR for the PCWP MACT, the agency explained, and I quote, that there are many types of resin systems used in the manufacture of the various PCWP, and that the resin system solution for one facility's product may not be applicable for another product produced at a different facility. Most facilities with products subject to the CARB and TSCA rules have not changed their control strategies to date. It is premature for the EPA to draw conclusions regarding the impact of the CARB and TSCA rules on technology used for process units regulated under the PCWP NESHAP. Facilities made a variety of different resin system changes in response to the CARB and TSCA rules, and therefore no single broadly applicable approach feasible for all mills was identified. The different resin system changes facilities made, coupled with the limited available HAP emissions data, ongoing use of add-on control technologies following resin system changes, and availability of production-based compliance options in the PCWP NESHAP did not support revising the PCWP NESHAP. EPA did not identify information suggesting the resin system changes have significantly altered the type of process units or HAP pollution control technologies used in the PCWP industry to date, or have led to processes or practices that have not been accounted for in the promulgated PCWP NESHAP compliance options. The promulgated PCWP emission standards already include the PBCO provisions for pollution prevention measures, such as lower HAP resins, end quote. So even in the preamble to this proposal, EPA doubled down on these same explanations. My third point is that the scope of EPA's definition of non-HAP resins may inadvertently greatly expand more stringent work practice standards for a large group of chemistries and create significant implementation uncertainty. Industry comments will suggest an approach that provides more clarity while ensuring appropriate record keeping for compliance. My final point for both the non-HAP resin and maximum vapor work practice standard, there are uncertainties on how the approach would work. Industry plans to provide comments that lay out a framework building from the proposal that addresses both resin suppliers and users' concerns. Again, an extension to the comment period will allow commenters to provide meaningful input to improve the rule. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Great, thank you very much. Panelists, any questions or clarifications? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for providing testimony today. Okay, once again, my name is Pete South. I'm the Associate Director of the Sector Policies and Programs Division at the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. I want to thank everyone who's shared comments so far today. If you have questions about today's hearing or are interested in registering to speak, please send a direct message to attendee support in the chat box. If you're joining us by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and our logistics teams will reach out to you and let you know there are time slots available. If you're watching the hearing on YouTube and are interested in speaking, please email our registration support team. That email address is in the public hearing box on our website. At this time, we're going to take a short recess. We'll resume the hearing in approximately 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back from the break. My name is Pete South, and I'm the Associate Director of the Sector Policies and Programs Division at the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, and I'm chairing today's hearing on the EPA's proposed amendments to the 2020 NESHAP for plywood and composite wood products, or PCWP. Joining me on the panel are two panelists. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Katie Hanks, an engineer with EPA's Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards.
Good morning. I'm Bill Schrock with the Sector Policy and Programs Division also.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Katie. I want to remind you that today's hearing is being recorded and transcribed to produce a written transcript of the hearing. We will add the transcript to the public docket for this rulemaking and will carefully consider your comments as we develop a final rule. For those of you on Zoom, if you have any questions about today's hearing or are interested in registering to speak, please send a direct message to attendee support in the chat box. If you're joining us via phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Our logistics team will add you to today's agenda if there are any additional slots available. If you're watching on the YouTube and are interested in speaking, please email our registration support team. That email address is in the public hearing box on our website. Please note, by registering for this event, you are agreeing to abide by the ground rules of the virtual hearing. That includes rules of behavior. EPA is committed to an environment of mutual respect and safety. The agency will not tolerate harassment, discrimination, intimidation, inappropriate language and images, or sustained disruption of the public hearing, event, or meeting. EPA expects all participants, including panelists, registered speakers, and attendees, to conduct themselves in a respectful, professional, and civil manner. We will monitor and moderate this virtual event to ensure that common standards of decency are upheld. A quick reminder about providing testimony: when we call on you to speak, please unmute your line. While you're providing testimony, you're also welcome to activate your camera by clicking on the Start Video icon. Please state your name and spell your name for the record. A 4-minute timer will be started when you state your name. At this time, I believe there are no additional speakers. For those of you on Zoom, if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and send a chat to attendee support. If you're watching the hearing on YouTube and are interested in speaking, please email our registration support team at pcwp-public-hearing@rti.org. Once again, pcwp-public-hearing@rti.org. For the next 5 minutes, the panel will remain here but off camera while we wait for potential speakers. Welcome back. My name is Pete South. I'm the Associate Director of the Sector Policies and Programs Division at EPA's Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. At this time, I understand there's no additional speakers. I want to thank my fellow panelists, those who offered testimony today, and everyone who took the time out of their schedules to listen to today's hearing. As a reminder, you can submit comments on this proposal through July 3rd, 2023. Instructions for submitting written comments are available on our website. Again, thank you for joining us for today's hearing. Today's hearing is adjourned. Have a good weekend.